whether man-made or not, one of the worst disasters in human history. And we are genuinely less prepared for the next one than the last one.
It's not one of the worst disasters in human history. I could name 100 worse ones.
Fair enough,
Okay.
but it was bad. I didn't enjoy it.
Let's not be purple.
It was a bad.
Man, this was wild. So Bill Maher brings on Ezra Klein to real time, right? And bro, Ezra starts dropping all the usual woke talking points, just going full progressive Twitter mode, and you can literally see Bill hit his limit. At one point, Bill just snaps, like in a calm way, but you can tell he's done playing nice. He shuts it all down, straight up puts Ezra in check, and starts laying out the facts. Honestly, it's been interesting watching Bill Maher evolve lately. He's not just pushing back on this over-the-top woke stuff, he's actually using his platform to bring some much-needed common sense into the conversation. And here's the thing. It's not just about calling out guests like Ezra. Bill's also kind of talking to his own audience. The folks who rode with him back when he was going full woke from like 2020 to 2022. It's like he's saying, hey, I've changed and maybe it's time you rethink some of this too. Anyway, let's jump into this clip. Bill Maher absolutely wrecks Ezra Klein live on air. And whether you agree with him or not, you gotta admit, it's entertaining as hell.
The host of the Ezra Klein Show podcast and the co-author of the book Abundance, Ezra Klein. And he writes the weekly Dish newsletter and hosts the podcast, The Dishcast with Andrew Sullivan. Andrew Sullivan. Okay, here are the questions. Andrew, what do you think of news that British intelligence knew COVID was a lab leak in 2020 and officially ignored their report?
Not just knew, aided a 95% certainty. Same with the German intelligence service. March 2020. There's a new book out called COVID's Wake. I was reading it this last couple of weeks, and the core paper that killed off any idea that this was a lab leak in China, the proximal origin paper, which was produced with Fauci and Collins of the NIH and NIAID helping it along, was a lie, a conscious lie, that the people who looked at it, we now have their emails, are saying in the very first days of looking at the virus, this looks very man-made to us. This is so friggin' obvious this is man-made. Well, so friggin' obvious, one of them said. And then they wrote the report saying there is no evidence that this was made in a lab. The question is why? Why would they lie to us about that? And they did.
Well, I can give you one answer, the New York Times. The New York Times said any questioning of this being from a lab was racist, which always struck me as odd because it seems much more racist to go, wow, these people are eating bats.
I know.
I mean, it's just one example, but a good example of why people lost faith in the left, because they do stupid things like that. Not to be an I told you so, but from the very beginning I was saying this shouldn't even be political, but it's at least a 50-50 it came from the lab, and that in 50 years, I can't imagine people going, wait, you mean in 2020, there was this thing that escaped from a lab in Wuhan, that started in Wuhan, and there was a lab in Wuhan that was studying it? And they didn't think that was connected, and they blamed it on bats? Really? It just doesn't make any sense.
It makes a little bit more sense.
You can gaslight people so easily.
Yes.
You know what's wild? The thing that's really going to be remembered in history books, it's not even the event itself. It's how we responded to it. That's the part that's going to go down as a complete disaster. It wasn't just about what happened. It was the lockdowns, man. The forced stuff, the mandates, the way everything was handled. That's the real mess. That's what people are going to look back on and say, yeah, that was a turning point, and not in a good way. And I wish more folks would realize that. Like, don't get it twisted. It's not the thing itself that was the problem. It was everything that came after. That's the piece folks really need to understand.
Democrats are so much as fault as scientists who went along with this, knowing better. It's their integrity I'm concerned about, to actually lie and distort what they could see with their own eyes because they were afraid of politics. The other question is this. This lab was a gain of function lab. That means they were creating viruses, dangerous viruses, to figure out how to protect you from them. This gain of function was research was always dangerous. Everyone knew it was dangerous. Long time ago, you go back to 2015, you will find a big meeting in London where they say there's one lab in the world most likely to have a problem with this, Wuhan. Do you know who was the biggest supporter of gain-of-function research for the last 30 years? Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci. Now, remember that name. There's a reason he was given a pardon back to 2014. There is something very wrong going on here.
You know?
Yeah, I also don't think he did it for nefarious reasons. There's an argument to be made. There's an actual intellectual debate to be had. Should gain-of-function research be done? We want to get ahead of viruses. The other answer is, the other response would be, it's too dangerous. Because if it gets out, it's going to be bad, and that's what happened. But I don't think he's an evil guy, like some people do, who was trying to get rich off this.
No.
Okay, he just made the wrong call.
No, he knew from the get-go that the Wuhan lab had security levels that were the average of a dentist's office. They should have been at the highest level imaginable. He knew that. Not only that,
he made the wrong call.
The NIH and NID had helped fund it.
Look, let's be real. This wasn't just a wrong call, okay? If we're being super generous here, at best, this was straight up incompetence and not the regular kind. I'm talking next level. This wasn't one of those situations where you weigh the options, it's like 50-50, and you go with your gut. And oops, you got it wrong. Nah, that's not what happened here. Like they said, this lab was doing gain-of-function research, right? Super risky stuff. And the safety protocols? Bro, they were in the dirt. Bottom of the barrel. When you're handling viruses like that, everything should be locked down. I mean, maximum security, maximum cleanliness, and all hands on deck to make sure nothing leaks out. But nope, they treated it like it was just another Tuesday. And Fauci? He's over here saying, it's fine. Come on, man. That's not just a mistake. That's dangerously irresponsible. Again, being charitable, maybe it was just extreme incompetence. Maybe, but honestly, I don't even think it stops at incompetence. That's just my take, though. You decide.
So you don't want to go down in history as the person who helped develop the virus that killed millions of people. You want to go down as the one who saved millions of people. That was at stake, a reputational matter.
A piece of a lot of this that seems insane to me is we are now years after, whether man-made or not, one of the worst disasters in human history. And we are genuinely less prepared for the next one than the last one.
It's not one of the worst disasters in human history. I could name 100 worse ones.
Fair enough, but it was bad. I didn't enjoy it.
Let's not be purple.
It was a
about
bad pandemic. Let's
Could
put it
have been
that way.
a lot worse.
You know what's wild? The part that's really gonna stay in the history books. Like the thing people will look back on and just shake their heads. It's not even the actual event itself. It's the way we responded to it. I'm talking lockdowns, forced mandates, all of it. That's the stuff that's going to be remembered as the real disaster. Not the thing itself, not the virus. It's how people in power handled it. That's what's going to go down as one of the worst chapters in modern history. And honestly, someone needs to spell that out clearly, because a lot of folks still don't get it.
Genuinely not my point on this. I'm happy to see that the Holocaust was worse than the pandemic. I think it's fine. But in other things, other countries, in this country, right? After something terrible happens, you often have these big bipartisan commissions that come up with a bunch of recommendations and try to create preparedness for next time. I sort of agree with you that we've gone way too far on airport security for too long, but we did a lot on things like biosecurity that made sense and actually did make us safer.
Yeah.
And we have anti-learned lessons, right? On the one hand, we had amazing success.
By the way, do y'all ever feel like airport security's gotten too much or not enough? Because honestly, for me, I'm all for it. Like, I don't trust crowds anymore at all. Too many crazy things go down these days. Shootings, random chaos, just wild stuff out of nowhere. So if I'm walking into a packed place, bro, I want full security. If I'm not allowed to bring something in for protection, I better know no one else is either. Do you feel me? So yeah, metal detectors at the airport, cool with it. As a matter of fact, throw them in movie theaters too. Like, I got nothing to hide. Pat me down, scam me, whatever. Just make sure the guy next to me isn't sneaking in something insane. Cause let's be real, people are unhinged now. Like legit psycho. We've got folks out here doing the most random, disgusting stuff. Bro, someone wiped their bare butt on a Tesla the other day. What are we even doing? So yeah, I'll take all security. Better safe than sitting next to someone who belongs in a straitjacket.
Operation Warp Speed, and now you got RFK Jr. running HHS. On the other hand, a bunch of huge mistakes were made on things like lockdowns, and we're just arguing about them. We haven't put out, say, a new best practices, right? Gain of function research, which y'all were just talking about, it is just an argument. It's something I try to keep paying attention to, and they haven't come out with strong new guidelines. Bird flu, everybody I read who knows what they're talking about says we are in a terrible position on bird flu if it actually begins to mutate and make the jump. We just have never figured out a way to find a policy equilibrium here, as opposed to sort of keep rehaving the argument. The arguments are important.
Because everything gets politicized.
But everything gets politicized.
But
we don't have the capacity to come to agreements. It's really bad that we are this unprepared now.
But that's why the integrity of science is so important.
I agree with you on that.
If we don't trust the scientists, who on earth are we going to trust? And
look, I'm just being real here. This stuff killed my trust. And I'm not even just talking about how messy the lockdowns were. That's one thing, sure. But what really got me is how fast legit experts, actual scientists with credentials, were shut down the moment they said something that didn't fit the official line. Like, really? But that's how we're doing things now? You'd think in science, open debate would be encouraged, right? But nah, these people were getting silenced, banned, and completely pushed out of the conversation. And that's when the red flags went up for me. Because if your position is that strong, you shouldn't be scared of someone challenging it. You should be able to respond with facts, not censorship. So now, I'm at a point where I don't just question the science. I question pretty much everything that comes from the top. And that's not a good place to be, man. When people lose faith in the people running things, it gets really shaky. Anyway, what did y'all think of Bill Maher going off on Ezra Klein? That was wild to watch. Drop your thoughts below. I'm curious. Did you agree with Maher on this one?